It's been a good minute, but we are now back. It's the Gafford and Brown Show, and this is the episode number 50. I'm Lamar Gafford,
I'm Robert Brown.
and man, it's been such a long time since we've been on the air, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been a while, but what better way to come back than with this great weekend of football?
Exactly. For the beginning of the NFL playoffs here, three of the four games really did not disappoint. You also had Bengals and Chargers, which was kind of a little bit of a anticlimactic, so to say. But
Right.
you know, I guess nobody really can complain about the game and the slate of games that we had, right?
Yeah, you can't at all. I mean, those three games that you mentioned all came down to the wire. Last second drives, two last second field goals. I mean, you couldn't ask for better endings. You couldn't write it better endings, especially with the Kansas City Colts game. I mean, man, you talk about epic comeback, epic collapse, legacy sitting game. It had everything you would want in a playoff game.
Exactly. And I mean, I did not catch the first part of it. I was already at I was doing stuff for work here, also covering a game for Northwestern State against the Lamar Cardinals. But I did get a chance to see the fourth quarter and was shocked to see them come back from all the way. And once again, I mean, Andrew Luck, he pretty much played out there. He had a very good game. Would you say here though that it would be like who? I mean, what would be the bigger story of this game? The Colts coming back, or the Chiefs just letting this go away?
Good question. I'm gonna say I would say the comeback
Mm-hmm.
because Andrew Luck's young career, the constant we've seen is him coming back, leading
Mm-hmm.
fourth quarter drives and getting wins, and this was the biggest one yet, and it set the tone honestly for his career. I mean, this is his second year in the playoffs at home, and he was able to lead his team back from that huge deficit and win that game in the fashion he did. And he also, we found out that there's life after Reggie Wayne
Mm-hmm.
and T.Y. Hilton, who had a great game, who you could say is the co-MVP of that game. So, very, very impressive game for Andrew Luck. I gotta say that I think them coming from behind was a bigger story than Kansas City collapsing. What about you?
Right. I mean, I have to go ahead and say the same thing too. I feel like that uh, Kansas City. I know that if you're expected to be up by 29 points, you're going to expect to win games pretty much 9 out of 10 times. Unfortunately, I guess we saw a little bit of Kansas City not being able to go to their bread and butter, which was pretty much Jamal Charles. He gets hurt in the opening drive of the game. That kind of takes a little bit off of what you can do
But
late in
he
games.
has a great backup.
That's true. That's true.
A great backup, who had a pretty solid game as well.
Hmm.
Who had a solid game last week against the Chargers too.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, and then I mean, regardless of Jamal Charles' injury, they still able to put up 31 points before halftime.
Exactly. So
So
yeah, there's that too. But you know, I'm not gonna take anything away from the Colts though in this. Like you said, like you just said, T.Y. Hilton, he's pretty much um, this guy's pretty much getting to be like a star, a rising star. Everybody, this might have been his breakout party, like his come through party or
yeah,
something like that.
he's definitely the number one receiver now, without question. I think even if Reggie Wayne, does come back next year from that devastating ACL injury, he's going to be the number one option. T.Y. Hilton is, and it's good. He's young. Him and Andrew Luck can build together.
Hmm.
Everybody knew Reggie Wayne wasn't going to be there forever.
Right.
He brings that veteran leadership, and you also got man, I always miss his name, but Desmond Howard,
Darius Hayward Bay.
Darius Hayward Bay. You got Donald Brown, who's finally coming around.
Hmm.
You have Trent Richardson. He's not doing well right now, but we know the potential is there.
Right.
So this Colts team is, I mean, they're scary. They're really scary.
Yes.
Them and the Chargers right now are very scary. And you look at it right now, we could potentially have a Chargers Colts AFC title game. I really think the Colts could go to New England.
Mm-hmm.
I think that game's very winnable. And as a Bronco fan, I've seen what the Chargers can do this year. I've seen them lose to the Broncos, and I've seen them beat Denver at Mile High. So it can go either way.
And it's quite possible. And funny that you also mentioned about the Chargers here, who also had themselves. Like we said, it wasn't the close victories that we've seen in the three other games here, but they come out here, they beat the Bengals now, and I guess the first thing I could take out of this is, I guess the renaissance of Phillip Rivers is starting to come back into fruition of him being like kind of in that top 10 type quarterback range.
He was top 10, top 15 to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think once you get past your Rodgers, Brady, Manning, Breeze ranking, then you have that second tier of Big Ben, Eli. You get the Eli in there, and then now then the young guys like Kaepernick and now Luck and Russell Wilson. I think then you would have Phillip Rivers somewhere in there.
Right.
Because I've never counted Phillip Rivers out because he's always been a hard guy, and he's a reason why they're so up and down. Because he's so up and down sometimes.
Exactly.
He'll give you 4 picks one game and then 4 touchdowns the next game, and maybe he'll split 2 picks and 2 turnovers. So you never know how he's gonna go. But the Chargers, they're such a weird team because even with this new coach and new regime, they're still so up and down.
Mm-hmm.
So with them winning this weekend, we don't know what they're going to do next weekend. So
right,
I mean that's something you have to worry about.
I will say that I guess their last 5 games have been pretty impressive. You had to win 4 games just to even get to this point, and now you win this game on the road here. It's going to remain to be seen how they do against Denver. They did beat them in Mile High, and it is a 1-1 advantage right there. And we all know when we get to these divisional matchups in the playoffs, it's a little bit tricky because you've seen each other, you've been well familiar with each other 2 times before in the season, and it's like nothing really steps out. So I guess it comes down to who's going to make the proper adjustments in that case.
Right. And right now, if you're Denver, I think you're excited in a way because this is the team that you lost to towards the end of your season. They kind of put the clamps on Peyton Manning. He didn't have his most productive game,
mm-hmm.
and also the defense once again couldn't stop anybody.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see what adjustments are made, in that game, and can Peyton Manning win his first playoff game as a Bronco?
Mm-hmm.
So lots of questions.
A lot of questions are also going to be on the Cincinnati front as well because 3rd playoff game for Andy Dalton, gets his first touchdown, sees some little bit of progress right here, but again, it seems like the same old story for Dalton and the same old story for Marvin Lewis. What changes do you think that's possible that's going to be out there in Cincinnati?
Not much. I think Marvin Lewis, this is his, 12th season?
Yes.
And he's had 4 worse years, and, we've seen him, struggle with that team. So for him to have a postseason, appearance, them win the division, I think his job is safe. Andy Dalton, he's not going anywhere. AJ Green's not going anywhere. I think they're just going to focus on having a better draft and make a couple moves in free agency. But I don't think no major shakeup is going to happen.
Right. I mean, I would probably be 50-50 on if there's any shakeup. I would be 50-50 on Marvin Lewis. I think as Bomani Jones has said earlier on the tweet, like he would get it if they did fire him.
Yeah, I mean,
but
12 years and that's it. But
exactly. But then again, he would kind of not get it because you saw how the Bengals franchise was before Marvin Lewis took that job. They were they were pretty bad. They were pretty bad. It just would be crazy, and I think that they're right there. I mean, they have the potential. They are pretty good. Um, like we said, AJ Green, he's pretty much right now. You probably could put him in that top five as far as the receivers in the league, right here. Andy Dalton, he's not that bad. He has his bad moments, but then again, when he has his good games, he can be very good in those games. And the defense that they have, I mean, the defense they have is just pretty good. So they're still okay. They're still good, but maybe they just need somebody in the draft. There's somebody else that can, that just stands out in the draft. Maybe I don't know. I mean, I can't think of what position that they probably would need some help in at that point, though. Can you?
Um, their defense is particularly stout. I would say maybe a running back. You know, I just don't see too many weak. The thing with them is the consistency. I don't think it's necessarily anything that they're particularly missing. It's just they can't really stay consistent. One
Mm-hmm.
week you see them, they look dominant. The next week it's not so much. It's just closing out games and just continuing their success. That's the only thing I just see from them. I think it's just growing pains really.
Right. Like you said, it's just gonna be one of those things. I think they can just do this. They can get there. It's possible that they can be pretty good, but um, it's just that they're gonna have to continue to work at it, and they still have a pretty good chance though, so they can still do this. Now shifting to the NFC side, and we had ourselves two very good games that came away with field goals at the last second. I guess we first can start off with the Philadelphia Eagles New Orleans Saints game, and I know a lot of people, especially up here, and especially those in the nation, kind of surprised here that the Saints actually held serve on the road.
Yeah. Um, it was a good win for them. It wasn't dominant or too convincing. And it kind of doesn't really, if you're a Saints fan, it doesn't make you too excited about them going to Seattle. But a playoff road win is a playoff road win, and they finally get that monkey off the back. But it's impressive in a way for them because they needed that playoff win so bad just to get over that road stigma. But yeah, Seattle is your pride, so it's like it's kind of like damn if you do, damn if you don't. Um, I'm starting to see them be more confident in their run game, which is something they're going to need against Seattle, especially in their weather and in their atmosphere.
Hmm. And that's going to be one thing to really see what they do. Um, I felt like that they played a pretty decent game, that they could go out there and do some things. At first, the passing game was a little bit shaky here. Breeze only had one touchdown, had for two interceptions in the game. You did see their running game did pick up a little bit, especially with Mark Ingram getting himself a touchdown on the ground, and a few key contributors. Um, how could they stand up against Seattle is going to be one thing to remain to be seen, because Seattle's defense, especially against the run, is very, very tough. And that's going to be one way for them to try to go out there and try to at least get themselves a win. Now, I am impressed about the Saints of them doing this, but now, like I said, they're going to have to do this for 2 more weeks if they want to get to if they want to get to the Super Bowl for at least a chance to get their second ring.
Right. And there's no way they can play at home. They have to do all this on the road.
Hmm.
So it's going to be a pretty hard task.
Exactly. Also, for those that are listening, if you want to try to get your voice on the show, please, you can call in at 408-657-0506. We do have finally a standalone number for the show. And also, you can go online on Skype if you want to get your voice on the show as well. You want to, you know, basically just Message us at primetime2832.